Hey guys, so today I actually want to talk about this wand called Shade of Solaris. And the wand itself only really has 3 lines in the game, but every single, well, 2 of the lines are really interesting. And the 2 lines that are really interesting are gain extra damage as chaos from your elemental damage, and the other one is 120% spell damage when you crit, but your crits deal no damage. So, in my opinion, this is pretty much the best in slot damage over time wands for damage over time skills. At least for my own build. I'm not sure. I haven't played 2.4, so I could be wrong about essence crafting, but you can correct me in the comments if anything. So basically, I'm running a Blight channel vortex build right now, and in terms of damage, it's actually a 4 link. You can do it on a 4 link. My 5th link is actually utility right now, and I can kill bosses fine. Usually, for the extra tanky ones, I'll just swap the conk effect with increased area. But essentially, what's happening is I'm doing a build that poisons using the extra chaos damage located on my 2 wands plus that Series Flask. And the funny thing about extra damage is that for every conversion step, it reapplies itself. So if you look at my chaos damage right now, the average damage is 500. If I put on my pyre, my vortex gets converted to fire damage, and my chaos damage doubled. It is now 100. Sorry, not 100, 1,000 average damage in terms of chaos. So right now, since I haven't popped my Series Flask, essentially what's happened is the 15 and the 16% they applied to the cold, and then it got converted and got reapplied to the fire. So what ends up happening is when I'm running around, pop my flask, I'm about 90% converted. Sorry, not 90% converted. I get 90% extra damage as chaos, which is much better scaling than if I were to run the typical consuming darks. So right now, 26 average damage, 1.2k top end for chaos. To make it fair, I'm gonna go like that. I'm gonna use void manipulation, and you can see I do more chaos damage, about 500ish for the top end, but my fire damage, so my vortex damage, actually dropped about 1,200 top end. So why is this important? Why does it matter? In terms of scaling, I have elemental overload, and because it's converted my fire damage to chaos damage, the extra damage I get from elemental overload is basically a 6-to-4 ratio. So I basically get 60% more chaos damage of the 40%, and 40% of the 40% will stay as elemental damage. However, with the wands, I get my full 100% elemental overload, and that 100% elemental overload gets I get to put on extra damage from that. So I would get 40% extra elemental damage and 36% more chaos damage when this procs with the wands. And the discrepancy is actually quite huge, so I'll show you guys in Dried Lakes. So right now I'm sitting at 2.1k average hit. Oops, I forgot to equip both of storms. So let's wait for it to crit. So there we go, it crit. Now I'm at 3,000 average damage. It's pretty shit. So I say that because if we compare it to switch back to poison, I compare that to the wands, when I crit with the wands, I do 7,000 average hit. I do 3,000 poison damage, which is roughly the same thing as converting, because I believe it was 2.7k poison, but my fire damage is jumps straight up to 4.7k. So once I pop my Atziri's Flask, you can see I literally doubled the damage of Consuming Dart, and I still have the poison aspect because I'm using the poison gem. So it gets more hilarious because right now I am using a wand that has 15% and 16%, a perfect Atziri's Elemental Flask, but the wand itself actually goes up to 20% extra as chaos. So if you have two perfect wands, you are essentially going to get 110% extra damage as chaos if you convert any cold skill with fire. So in terms of damage and DPS, I don't think there's any other setup that is going to be as good as this one. I'll see you guys next time.